Hello everyone, this is part 3 of a 3-video series. I thought it was only going to be 2, but this one's going to talk about how to create a situation, but it's going to build on everything we talked about in parts 1 and 2. So now you have your monster upgraded, or maybe not upgraded, and you're thinking that situationally, you might be able to make the monster really good without even having to tinker with the stats. So we're going to talk about that in this video, on how you can make a fight harder or easier, depending on how you do these next 5 things. An encounter is made of these 5 things: terrain/location, starting positions of monsters/party, surprised or not surprised, character relations, hero strengths and weaknesses. The first one alone we're going to show right here. By the way, this is called Dungeon Fog. I do have a upgraded bought version, but you can do a free version where you can hold on to I think it's like 3 or 5 maps for free. I get unlimited maps plus additional stuff. So if you've done Dungeon Fog, you see I have different things than you were able to get. I do pay a subscription, so thank you. So terrain and starting location. For example, I did make this little rocky chute here. So heroes are going to be these little, I don't know, they're supposed to be goblinoid people or whatever. And then the wolves will be enemies, right? So this really changes the fight, right? If you have 4 wolves and you have 4 heroes, this has already instantly changed how you do this combat. It is no longer maybe 4 wolves against 4 people. It could be 2v2, where obviously wolves are all melee unless you have your people in the back here. This would be a significantly easier fight, as you could rain damage into the back row here and your frontliners could never get advantaged on. And obviously you can never get advantage unless you have skills that allow you to do so. So that's one way terrain could do it. Another is water. So for example, if your wolves were to start in water, or heroes, you can always change enemy with your party, because this obviously goes both ways. So if your wolves start in the water, and let's say your party has range, they have to spend some of their movement getting out of the water, and they may not be able to reach you in the first turn due to the terrain/location. And if all of this is rough terrain, if all of this was water, it would obviously take the wolves considerable amount more time to get to your heroes. Thus, you do more damage farther away, decreasing the difficulty. Now, if you want to increase the difficulty, obviously just reverse the situation. Your heroes are the wolves. The little guys down here are the enemies. You have to get out of water as they're pegging you with arrows. That makes an encounter maybe that was easy, now harder. So that's number 1. Sometimes you just need to change the location and the terrain. Make places bigger, smaller, narrow. Add some rough foliage into it. Put some big trees, maybe. Some big trees are going to block lines of sight. Maybe lines of sight are important to your party. You got archers, you got mages and stuff who need to see people. So by just changing the terrain, you can instantly increase or decrease the difficulty of encounters. Point 2, monster starting location. Pretty darn obvious and kind of goes with the last one, but not really. So let me just do a couple of examples. This one's pretty obvious. But obviously, this is not the same. So if you were to start this all across the line, this fight is not the same if you were to literally have them. Even just pretend the water's not even here, right? This fight, these 2 fights are very different. Now your heroes could back up the first turn, and now now the enemy has to double, or your heroes could obviously shoot some. You know what I mean? This just isn't the same. And also another starting location thing that just isn't the same is something like this. You know what I mean? It's just how your monsters get there, and then this will wrap up with other points as well. But depending on how your monsters get there, this is a completely strong way to make a easier fight harder, or harder fight easier. Because let's say you do have dire wolves. I picked out these big guys, right? And you're thinking, oh man, there's no way my party is currently equipped to handle 4 dire wolves. Well, just combining a couple of our tips already, we've only talked about 2, distance and terrain, right? So we're going to include location and terrain, and also use a little bit of this, right? So now let's just pretend that they can't go around this, right? Let's just pretend there's one way to funnel enemies in, and they have to come across water. Get 1 turn to shoot, so let's say they all get to here, like that roughly. You get another turn to shoot, and now those wolves can only really attack 2 at a time, right? So if you have a quote-unquote weaker party that should be able to handle this, you can have a situation where the party is able to funnel them into a little area here, while also pegging them as they go through rough terrain. So that's combining both of those ideas together to make a harder fight a little easier / more fair. It may not be easy, but it will definitely be more fair, rather than just obviously having one guy sit in the middle of like 4 dire wolves, right? You know, you don't want to do that. So, I mean, you could, but, you know, probably going to be death, depending on the situation. So surprise and not surprise. This one's, you know, kind of easy. So let's say, for example, you got all of the wolves out, right? And you're like, man, there's no way these guys are going to be able to hand 4 dire wolves and also just 4 regular wolves. But let's just say they're all sleeping and your party is able to get like maybe like a decent surround or something. I don't know what would be beneficial for your party. Let's say you're able to blast these guys with a couple AoE abilities right away, and let's just say that's enough to get rid of the smaller wolves. Now you're stuck to these 4 who may be hurt as well. And then depending on the initiative, you know, these guys could maybe destroy 1 dire wolf right away and then come in assistance. You know what I mean? So you can, based on a surprise, you can easily go from 8 enemies down to maybe 3 based on how you clump up the enemies, so their starting location, and if they're surprised or not, right? So if your party's able to get a surprise, nuke away a couple of the add-ons, and maybe take down a big guy right away, your statistically hard encounter now just got either A, reasonable, or B, way in the hero's favor. Now let's swap it up. Let's say all of your heroes are sleeping, because, you know, our heroes do need to sleep sometimes. And now the wolves already managed to get this close upon sneaking up, right? Now, this would obviously be like overkill, depending if your party's ready for that. But let's say maybe dire wolves aren't actually that bad, and these little regular wolves are pretty weak, and you're thinking, oh man, it's almost not worth having this fight because, you know, these guys maybe take a hit to kill now, but if they all get the jump, you could do some decent damage, and with pack tactics, you know, you could come in like this and actually get some formidable damage going, right? So this situation right here, even if your heroes are more well equipped to handle dire wolves, this could do some decent damage. It could show off the might of wolves. It could show them their sneaky and pack tactics, you know what I mean? It could really show off the prowess of wolves in this fight. Just something to consider, that surprises and non-surprises definitely add difficulty or reduce difficulty, depending on how you do surprise rules in your household. Alright, next what we're going to do is character relations. So let's just say there's one person right here that you're fond of. We're going to start with fond of and then negative. And you're like, oh man, you know, we want to get to this person and like quote unquote save them, but you got, you know, some like not so savory people in front. Let's say they're getting attacked by a, let's up the antes. Let's say they're getting attacked by a dire wolf. And once again, let's just pretend that this wall stretches the whole way out in this way. And you have to run through this 10-foot corridor. Now, normally you might sit there, you know, like systematically go and remove a wolf at a time, you know. But maybe this person's not a strong fighter and you're like, oh, we have to get back there quickly. So instead of you systematically removing people, what you might end up seeing your party do, if they truly like the person, is say, ow, 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 ow. You know, like, and quickly get in there like that or something. Maybe they take like 1 or 2 opportunity attacks. Now they're getting advantaged on, but at least the party can say, okay, we're now here, you know, and now we can, push that wolf away, save this person. But, you know, your party might be taking a lot of additional damage because they're like, we need to get to this person right here. Now, maybe what we want to say is, let's say this dire wolf in particular is the big bad guy, right? Big bad guy you've been hunting for a while, where, you know, it's been the campaign's main, like, it's been that session tonight where, like, this is the guy we want right here. And maybe I can change the color real quick. Nah, I'm not worried about it. Your party might do literally this same exact thing, because they're like, we don't want this guy getting away. And they might also, you know, put themselves into harm's way because they want to destroy this bad guy. So whether it's a good relation or bad relation, you can really up the ante. And another thing with good relations is you could have someone be like, let's just say, possessed by a demon. I don't know, you know, just whatever mind control situation you want to do. So let's just say the spellcaster's down here. This guy's being controlled. And normally your party would just be like doing like AoE fireballs and stuff. But let's just say they can't really find a good fireball location that doesn't catch this person, right? So they might have to do more single target abilities, and this person's also raining down stuff on them, and they're also gonna get ignored. So there's a lot of situations where this person can probably pump out more damage than normal, and might also limit your party's spells. So consider that people's relations / getting mind controlled may make your party fight differently, even though the encounter looks easy on paper. Adding one important person they really want to take down or really want to save will maybe alter their strategy. And finally, we also get the hero's strengths and weaknesses. I know a lot of DMs don't want to be like, oh, I don't want to specifically pick on my players' weaknesses. Well, sometimes it's just the situation they're in. So once again, let's just say in this instance, there's not a lot of good ranged people in your party. And we are going to just pretend these wolves are now like some archer-based people. Obviously, having your archer-based people on the other side and having like maybe a little bit of rock formations that are going to help that stop them getting there. This would be a nightmare for a party without a lot of range, right? Because now you got to run up. You're using location / starting position of monsters, right? You're also using difficult terrain now. And you're also fighting against your hero's weaknesses because they're not good at range. So not only do they have to run, they have to get through difficult terrain. They also have to utilize their weaknesses. Maybe you have a fighter or two. They have a heavy crossbow, but it's like +4 to hit or something. These guys got like 13, 14 AC. Like that's barely a 50% chance. So then they have to go through the water. And if you want to be a real jerk, you'd have these guys easily like, spread out, maneuver like this while they're coming in. And that would really make the situation really difficult. Because as they get across the water, you still can't even get their first turn. So even as you're getting through the water, you're still not there yet. And even if they all decide to go to one side to catch one people, these guys can tag, you know what I mean? Basic enemies to the hero's weaknesses, terrain, and starting location instantly made this fight a lot harder, and you would not have had to touch all the stats depending on if their stats were at all appropriate for this fight. If your guys have like a +3 to hit and your heroes have an AC of 19, you probably want to give them like a +5 or 6 at a minimal, because no one wants to roll 30 d20s just to figure out you hit like twice. Maybe you do, but in that scenario, jack it up a little bit. But if these guys have like 18 AC, and you're level 3, they only have like 35 HP, maybe you do want that only +4 to hit, as it might do 5 damage per hit, because you're going to get about 3 or 4 volleys off. You really don't want to pincushion your guys too terribly bad. Now, obviously, we want to talk about hero strengths, because strengths are fun on heroes. For example, you have a situation where you're like, oh, this looks really cool. Okay, well, let's just say something. If you have any spellcasters in your group, Fireball, Lightning Bolt, Cone of Cold, Shatter, Entangle, Fairy Fire, Hypnotic Pattern, you go through it, right? This is a wet dream for spellcasters. If you allow your people to have like AoE ability, like utility items, whatever have you, this is just a horrible starting position. It will absolutely work to your hero's strengths depending on the party. So that's another way you can make a fight a lot easier. It's kind of a surprise thing, but even if you don't get surprised or they don't get surprised, one wizard gets like a strong initiative, boom, like you could just instantly remove all these guys, and your fight's now a joke essentially. So you can make your fight stronger because you can accidentally group enemies up, or you could also spread enemies. And now your wizard's fireball maybe only kills like these two over here, right? So this is how situation makes fights harder without actually increasing or changing the stats of your monsters. I hope this video is helpful. I hope this trifecta of videos really pulls in on how you can balance monsters and situations, because as I've said before in my other videos, it's okay if your monster's DPS is way higher than your party's, because depending on the situation, you may not even get to use half the enemies, so the enemies that do get there need to at least do some serious damage if you want it to be a respectful fight. Thank you for watching. Always like and subscribe below for more helpful videos like this, and hope you see you next time.